Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to have you here. Welcome to NAPE UK Europe chapter's third webinar, technical and business session. It's good to have you here. Thank you so much for coming. We want to also thank the speaker for sending his presentation and for agreeing to have this discussion, he has brought us here today. But before we start, it would be good, we would like to make known the house rules. So during the course of this presentation, we would appreciate if you can turn off your video so as to maintain the bandwidth so that we can all hear the speaker. Please turn off your video. So it's only the speaker's video that will be turned on so that we can see him as he speaks, and also to make it engaging for us all. Also, mute your mics, please. Let's endeavor to mute our mics, and just let us be conversant with that so that there's no noise. We can all enjoy this discussion, this presentation. There will be question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So please make use of the chat function to type your questions. At the end of the presentation, after the summary of the presentation has been presented by the chair, your questions that I find on the chat function, I will read them out for the presenter to answer. So we have 15 minutes for questions. Also, I think we'll be keeping an eye on the clock so as to make keep the time and make everything efficient. Thank you so much for attending. I will hand over, before I hand us over to the chapter's coordinator to introduce the chairman of the technical meeting, I want to mention that, at my end, there's no fire alarm or any safety drill that is going on. So, and I'm sure you've also checked with in where you are, and if there's any fire or any alarm. So I think, the right thing is for you to react appropriately. So over to the chapter's coordinator. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Apoyemi. Thank you for that introduction. I want to thank everybody that's attending our third NAPE technical and business meeting, NAPE UK. On behalf of our president of NAPE, Mrs. Patria Oshogo, fellow of NAPE, and the entire committee, executive committee member of NAPE UK Europe, I would like to welcome you once again to our third NAPE technical business meeting that we are holding today. As you know, the topic of today is very powerful, and the topic is Niger Delta Deep Petroleum System, the Diamondoid story, which is going to be presented by our Dr. Honoriode from the University of Newcastle. And I believe that he will do justice to this topic. And without wasting too much of our time, I would like to introduce our chairman of this occasion that will drive this technical meeting. He is a professor of petroleum geology and environmental geology. He's also a fellow of NAPE, fellow of NMGS, as you can see on the screen. And he also was immediate past HOD of University of Ibadan, Nigeria. This is our able professor, Ajayi Enyola, who is going to share this program. And I will yield this floor for him to introduce the speaker of today. Thank you very much, Prof. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, our NAPE UK chapter. Thank you, the coordinator. I also want to thank the NAPE executive for giving me this opportunity. Briefly, I will just introduce our speaker today. Untitled PhD was on Niger Delta Petroleum System. On completion of his PhD study, he went to study 3 to 5 years, 3.5 years postdoc at Herod University, working on Africa Ultra Deep Source Rock System on the carbon dioxide storage in depleted oil reservoir and leakage along fault fractures in cap rocks. He currently contributes to the teaching of petroleum system on the MS.
I was with you for more than 40 minutes.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to thank the coordinator and the NAPE executive for this privilege. I will just go briefly because of our time to introduce the speaker, who happens to be one of our students before here at the University of Ibadan before proceeded to Newcastle. Untitled PhD was on the Niger Delta Petroleum System. On completion of his PhD study, he went on to do a 3.5 postdoc at Herod University, working on Africa Ultra Deep Water Source Rock System. He has also worked on carbon dioxide storage in depleted oil reservoir and leakage along fault fracture in cap rocks. Hello. He currently contributes to the teaching of petroleum system on the MSc Applied Petroleum Geoscience course at NAPE, drawing from his wealth of experience in both the academic and industry. I know today what he wants to talk on is on Diamondoid, which are the latest in geochemistry. I know the use of fingerprints and the rest. Today, we will learn a lot from him and see what he has for us today. So I want you to join hands with me to welcome our speaker today, Honorable. You are welcome. So over to you.
Thanks.
So, also, I think we need to thank the NAPE president. I know he is also online, and other NAPE executive. We are sorry because of time. We want the presenter to share your slides so that we can also follow.
Thank you very much, Professor Enyola. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Akbar, can you please help me, give me permission to share my slide, please?
Yes, Akbar, please, can you?
Just go ahead and share it.
Okay, just go ahead and share it.
It cost, so you should be able to share.
Okay.
Yeah, sharing it
We can
now.
see your slide now. Dr. Tugbe, you can go on, you can see your slide now.
Yes.
Yeah. You can put it on the presentation slide.
Yeah, thank you very much for attending the talk today. I will be introducing this a bit complex and new, but I guess I'll make it as simple as possible. It's going to just be a talk about diamondoids and possible mixing in Niger Delta hydrocarbon.
I've seen your this thing. What? Yeah. What?
And possible mixing Niger Delta hydrocarbon systems. So we just go through current understanding Niger Delta, geochemical fingerprinting, like Professor Enyola mentioned, which is very popular. We look at diamondoids, and then ultimately we conclude with African regional source rock systems. And why is it that in Nigeria we don't really talk about what the other African basins are all looking at? So we know that our basin started developing in the Jurassic and really developed in the Cretaceous. And all through the Cretaceous mainly, we have an anoxic system, which is very good in the formation of good source rocks for any petroleum system. So most of the basin which you look at in Africa, from the North Africa down to Kwanzaa Basin and even part of the Orange Basin, was actually anoxic in the Cretaceous. So that is part of the basis for the talk today. If you think of it critically, we don't talk about the Cretaceous in Nigeria or in Niger Delta, partly because the Cretaceous be too deep, and partly because we have not really sampled the Cretaceous in Niger Delta. Classical understanding and hydrocarbon types in Niger Delta is the more you go deeper, the API will be increasing probably from about 20 to 43. If you sample very deep reservoir, you get very light oil. And if you sample very shallow reservoir, there is a possibility that you'll be sampling biogenic gases. And to talk about maturity of our oil, we know that the Akata top currently sits about 0.9 thermal maturity, vitronite reflectance to about 1. And current understanding says most of our oil is from the Agbada shales and the top of the Akata marine shale, which is very good. It's what we see. At the onset of my PhD, I was confronted with this enigma, which they presented to me as the current understanding, and that was in 2011. I was given this page to look at, and they said that is possibly the best source rock systems which we have in Niger Delta, which has put every other factors in place. We have oil mature source rocks and gas mature source rocks, and that's a reflection of the fluid which we drill into in the basin. But as all geologists will know, this is very busy and it's looking complex. Yes, our basin is a very complex basin if you've worked in most other basin in the world. But does this really reflect what we are supposed to have, or what should actually be the case in Niger Delta? So I took it upon myself. I got samples from across the Delta, and then I started working. The source rocks from the wells are basically immature, organic, lean, and are gas prone. From the figure, you can see phytoclasts, plant materials just everywhere. And we know that phytoclasts are basically gas generating. And if we say that phytoclast is actually main part of the source rock, then we should have only gas and not oil as we have it in the basin. And the argument also concludes that the top of the Akata shale will be source rock contributing the oil, which is really good. And most people I meet and talk with just believe that, yes, Akata shale has never been drilled. I will like to tell you categorically that I've handled more than 1,000 feet of Akata shales. I've looked at it deeply, and I can tell you Akata shale is more yes, they've got type 2 kerogen in them, and Akata shale is more like an oil shale. And there was proposition in one of the early literatures that because of the overpressure and the compacted nature of the shales, the migration efficiency is very low. I think that sums it all. If you look at Akata shale and you handle it as a geochemist, you will see that most of the oil is actually inside the shale, and migration efficiency is really, really, really very, very low in that shale. Again, I got samples from wells. So just a paper I'm currently working on commingled wells. We have samples from shallow reservoir and deep reservoir. I don't have details on how shallow a shallow reservoir is or how deep a deep reservoir is. But if you look at it critically, within a well, you will see pristine and fighting ratio of about 1 in a deep reservoir and pristine fighting ratio of about 3.5 in a shallow reservoir. And this is really very different across the samples which you look at, mainly because from the shallow reservoir, there's been a whole lot of migration contamination through the Agbada shales, with fluid migrating, picking up biomarker signatures of the shale which they pass through at any point in time. Same also for the stirring over open ratio, which we use for deposition environment. So within a well, you can see a fluid that is really, really different, and you start wondering what actually is really happening here. And that's a classical example of our fluid range from 1 to 16. You can see a very dark dead oil at 1 and something worth of condensate at 16. And at this, you begin wondering why your fluid changes rapidly over a very short distance. Is it the geology that is controlling it, or is it just a different source rock contributing to this oil which you're looking at? But I tell you, if we just put our mind to just 1 and 16, the fluid from 1 and 16, if you take 95% of the fluid in 16 and you mix with 5% of the fluid in 1, you will end up with the fluid in 3 or 4 in color. So the fluid itself, the difference color might just be something that we need to really look at critically. But mixing from the left-hand side with the right-hand side, we always produce a color that is will be towards the left-hand side. And that is something everybody should start thinking about, that yes, these fluids might be coming from different places, or they might be mixed at a different percentages. So I've put together a good alkane trace for us to look at. If you look at a fluid from 1, which is the dark fluid, that will be our trace that is on top, and we have a full suit of N-alkane. And for Niger Delta Basin, you have a few suits of the gasoline range also. Then the middle range fluid and then the very light range fluid will give you a whole lot of gasoline range, which might be as a result of thermal maturity or as a result of source it's coming from. Bear in mind what I've put together also on this slide. You see the gasoline range, you see the diamondoid range, you see the aromatic steroids and the biomarkers. So most of the work which we currently do in geochemistry are restricted to the aromatic steroids and biomarker. If you put that at the back of your mind, if you look at the last fluid that is just gasoline rich, they are mostly depleted with the aromatic steroid and biomarker, although they have the naphthalines and the phenolphthaleins range for us to look at. If you decide to mix a fluid from one which have biomarkers with a fluid from the last which doesn't have biomarkers, all what you'll be looking at will be the aromatic steroids and the biomarker from the fluid from the number one, which is what most of us still currently do. So I have tried to do a detailed work on the oil sample, and I've divided them into chemical class to look at the source and the thermal maturity. So just based on the N-alkanes alone, that's how our Niger Delta oil plots out. They are mainly type 3 with some type 2, and they are early mature. And most of our publications just based our oil on this, type 2, mainly type 3, and sorry, type 3 and some type 2, type 3, and they are early mature. And they say that's the source of our oil. But if you take a step further and you look at the gasoline range really tell us that our oil are actually type 2. And some type 2, type 3, they'll take source, and they're actually in peak oil window. And you go further, you look at the aromatics. The aromatics will tell you that our oil are generated from marine shale, undoubtedly, which nobody is doubting, and they are actually in peak to late oil window. So something different from the other chemical class also. And then if you look at the biomarkers will tell us that, yeah, our oil sample in Niger Delta are mainly from the planktonic bacteria and a whole lot of land plants, and they are in early oil window. What I've also done is just to take a North Sea oil to just see how that changes based on what I'm looking at. The North Sea oil stays relatively the same and does not really change. So if you see here, the North Sea oil is looking to be the most mature of my sample. By the time I start looking at the aromatics, the North Sea oil is just mixed, and it says it's the peak oil window like the last slide, which you saw. But when I looked at my biomarker, the North Sea oil seems to be the most mature. So the North Sea oil stays relatively the same, but our Niger Delta oil stays differently. And I've also looked at our oil with the Diamondoid parameter, which just we just block we just says our sample is just type 2 marine, and they actually in late oil window to early gas window. And if you look critically at the bottom of the page, you will see our North Sea oil is just in peak oil window at vitronite reflectance of about 1.1 calculated. So everything stays the same for the North Sea oil, but for Niger Delta, your interpretation will actually be based on the chemical compound class which you are looking at, and that makes it interesting. And I've tried to look if actually our samples are actually mixed from different sources, and looking at the methyl naphthalene, and that's the trial, tetra, and penta methyl naphthalene index. That actually says, yes, our oil is actually from mixed sources and of different maturity based on this index. And that makes it very important, and for us to conclude that our oil generally shows mixed signals from early oil window to peak, then to late, then to early gas window if you're looking at diamondoids. And the source can either be type 3, type 2, or mixed type 2 and type 3, depending on what you are looking at and which compound class you are looking at. Whereas the North Sea oil, which I've just tried to use as a standard in my interpretation, stays the same as just peak oil window and type 2 marine. Those contradicting results for the Niger Delta oil just mean that our oil, which we are looking at, is just actually mixed sources. So we have several sources contributing to the oil in Niger Delta. And that brings us to the discussion of today, diamondoids. Diamondoids, what are diamondoids? Diamondoids are just chemical class in our oil sample. It's present in all oil sample, depending on how you try to analyze it. If you have a oil sample that has not been through high maturity, you will generally see 5 ppm. So the agreed baseline concentration for diamondoids in oil is 5 ppm. Some people try to look at this and struggle with getting diamondoids, but if you use a good method in the lab, you will see diamondoids in almost all the oil at about 5 ppm concentration. And if you look at the figure critically, the oil window source rock is contributing oil to our reservoir at 5 ppm diamondoids, but the overmature source rock is actually contributing oil also. But the deep source rock is contributing a whole lot of diamondoids into the system. So based on the knowledge which we know that, yes, all oil should have about 5 ppm of diamondoids concentration, and the overmatured source rock will actually contribute oil of greater concentration of diamondoids in them. That makes me move a step further and say, okay, yes, why not let's use diamondoids to resolve this oil? And what I did was in 2012, I started analyzing for diamondoids, and a lot can actually be done with diamondoids. So the easy story will be to look at this figure critically. The figure is by the Moldovan group, DAL, what it did in the lab in 1919. If we have a low maturity oil, it's going to be filled up with biomarker. And for that, we just generally use our C29 styrene to quantify our biomarker, just to be using as a standard. And for the diamondoids, we use the 3-methyl diamantane and the 4-methyl diamantane as our concentration. So if you have a low maturity oil, your oil will have loads of biomarker in them and will stay on that line with just about 5 ppm diamondoids. But as maturity begins to increase and cracking goes on, we start having oil sample that are depleted in biomarker. Biomarker can be reduced to 0 in some oil, and then the diamondoids concentration can start increasing. And that is the same thing which I've done for our Niger Delta oil. You see the C29 styrene concentration for our oil I've analyzed, and the 3+4-methyl diamantane concentration I've also looked for all the oil samples which I generally look at. The North Sea oil stands at about 4 ppm diamondoid concentration, which is where we expect it to be at peak oil window. But what you will notice is that our Niger Delta oil, they have a whole range of biomarkers in them, and they are also filled with diamondoids. The only thing you can draw for that, or the main take-home message, is our oil are actually mixed from different sources. And also, the diagram which I've put together, I've used 10 ppm as my baseline. So instead of using 5 ppm as a baseline for the diamondoid's concentration, which is generally acceptable. I've used 10 ppm. So I try not to overestimate, but actually I'm underestimating, which still gives a very good indication that yes, we have a whole loads of our oil coming from deep source. So coming back to our complex diagram, which I started with, we know our basin is really complex, and we know, yes, this basin has a whole lot of reservoir faulting system. We have increased in shale samples at the base of the Agbada, and the top of Akata should be a world-class source rock, which is should be rich organically. The Akata samples which I looked at have between 2 to about 6% TOC, and that's fairly constant. So at the end of it, I did a thermal cracking map for Niger Delta. If you look at where I was starting from in 2011, and at 2014, this was what I produced. The figure which I've inserted on the right is from Arc et al., which shows the basin thickness. That's to the western part of the basin, we have very deep sedimentary pile thickness. And to the eastern parts, we possibly have shallower sedimentary pile as compared to the western part, which is reflected on the Diamondoid's results, which I have. And that's just point out that the oil and gas sourcing and maturity in our basin might actually be controlled by the basin thickness and how our basin is set out. And then I proceeded to do a mixing curve based on my 10 ppm, baseline for Diamondoid instead of 5. And looking at it, that if you have 54 ppm Diamondoid concentration, 40% is actually coming from the deep source. But if we decide to change this to 5 ppm instead of 10, then that will indicate that almost 60, 70, or 80% of all our oil sample in Niger Delta are actually coming from the deep source that are just type 2 marine. And if you look at the alkanes which I've inserted also, you look at the waxy oil, 3+4 methyl diamondoids, 4 ppm unaltered oil, which I've called sample A. Then you look at another oil, which I've called sample B, 72 ppm unaltered oil also. We see that the gasoline range is filled, and the biomarker is actually a bit depleted, but you still get to see a lot of biomarkers when you analyze this sample on the GCMS. And then the last sample, which I call oil C, has a diamondoid concentration of 139 ppm. That's interesting because it really goes above the roof, because that's just saying that we have about 99% contribution from our deep diamondoid source. But then if you look at it critically, you'll see that we have multiple charge in that oil, and the early oil has been partly biodegraded, and then we are having a wash of unaltered oil, which is actually late gas charge in that reservoir. And that brings me to the fact that, yes, we have a whole lot of contribution from a deep source. And then more recently, I've been looking at ultra deep water source rock. So these are actually source rocks in other coeval basin in Africa. So from Senegal to Tano to Kwanzaa Basin, Orange Basin, and then to the East African basins. We have to sample one of the ultra deep water well also in Atlantic. Why that is important is because we know our basin was formed in started opening up in the Jurassic, and that was actually deposited on the eastern part of the basin before plate tectonics, and that part moved to the Atlantic. So we looked at all the samples, which we've got about 1,500 thereabout samples. And I can tell you that when I say ultra deep water, it's actually ultra deep water because the water depth was between 1.9 kilometer to 4.1 kilometer. And then the very interesting thing about all the samples was that we had to sample the Cretaceous. And sampling the Cretaceous just points to the fact that we have a whole load of source rocks in the Cretaceous. For example, in the Kwanzaa Basin, there was an interval which I still try to keep till date. It has a TOC of 45% and it's marine. So that's something like normally which you expect coal to have, but this is marine shale, 45% TOC. And I tell you, all through all the other basins, you have intervals of 200 or 300 meters. That is just thickly between 4 to 15% TOC. The Kwanzaa Basin is a bit out of it because you have intervals that is between 15 to 25% TOC. So when you hold those source rock, you actually know that yes, the Cretaceous is oozing of organic matter. And that brings back the question, why don't we talk about the Cretaceous in Nigeria? Yes, it's too deep. We don't see it. And how are we going to talk about what we don't see? That is the most argument from some people. Even the Atlantic, I see a 50 meter interval with TOC of between 5 to 18%. And those intervals are actually very, very organic rich. And given the appropriate maturity, you will know that they will generate oil and gas. If we have not sampled the Cretaceous in Niger Delta, does it mean that the Cretaceous is not there? Or does it mean that they've not actually contributed to the oil and gas in the basin? So if you look, Coeval Basin opening up at the same time, on the top will be Niger Delta full with phytoclast, and that is the kind of organic matter which we see. Lean TOC 0.5 to struggling 1.1. If you sample interval in Niger Delta, that is very thin and tiny interval, maybe 2 centimeter thick in a core sample, you can have organic richness, but then what impact with 2 centimeter thick will do to the overall picture of what we are looking at? So any organic matter which you are looking at that is rich in the penetrated wells in Niger Delta will just be a very tiny layer. But for the other African basin, so those slide, the part to the bottom of the slides, actually what you see in ultra deep water Africa, the Cretaceous, so some SCM for you there and some organic matter as against what you see in Niger Delta. So the Cretaceous is actually oozing with organic matter, which we generally talk about. And we know that during basin development, we So this is a classical diagram by Olukade Samuel, which I like to share. I can't really do a better job than what he has done here. I left out the knowns and I put the other source rock, which indicates the Cretaceous, which is pointed out. So we know that the Cretaceous actually developed during ocean anoxic events with good preservation, good production. And then we might have a Cretaceous marine source rock, which the Diamondoids have shown us that, yes, we have a type 2 marine source rock that must have been cracked. And then the early drift lower Cretaceous marine source rock, which Samuel pointed out there. Again, that's possible. I've left out discussing about the lacustrine source rock because that is a bulk game which I'm working on now. Again, in any Niger Delta sample which you take, analyze for metal open and metal stirrings and compare what you're getting with the source rock from the Green River Shale. So we use Green River Shale as a typical lacustrine source rock in the world. The Niger Delta oil will give you similar biomarkers to the Green River Shale if you know what you're looking at. And we see the Green River Shale is just type 1 source rock. So we have contribution also from lacustrine, which I will try and discuss in another presentation, not today. So generally speaking, I think that the Niger Delta system has benefited a lot from the Cretaceous, although we've not seen samples from the Cretaceous. Over the past few years, we've tried to get IODP to drill in ultra-deep water Niger Delta. That has not been really possible because the IODP has really complained that there's active petroleum systems. Maybe one of these days, if we try more and get them to drill, then the scientific community in Nigeria will enjoy and know more about what is really happening during the opening up of that basin. I am not here to argue that, yes, our source rock from the Cretaceous might be as rich as the other parts of the basin, because I know there'll be a whole lot of dilution going on in the Niger Delta as the basin is opening up. But the Niger Delta is well benefited from the Cretaceous, and that is indicated in the compound class which we have in the basin. And if you look at the diamondoids and look at it critically, you know how to analyze it, you will benefit well, and also a whole lot of new things for you to learn. There's a paper which I did some few years back. So that will be I think it's about 16 or 14 months now, AAPG paper, quantitative diamondoids analysis indicates oil co-sourcing. It's freely available for anybody to download, and it's 29 pages. If you want to know more about diamondoids, you can just take a look at the paper. It's very detailed. I took my time to just put everything together in there, and I guess that's where I'll stop today. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you. We're honored. You to call you honors. At least
yes, I'm still honors, sir.
So you've really done justice to this talk today. I think it's an excellent presentation. I know a couple of people have been trying to ask one question or the other. And before the questions, I just want to appreciate you for putting this together, even for NAPE UK. You have done very well. I also want to thank the NAPE president. I know he's also here in our midst. I will not be able to go through other notable people. Even some of them, you have even talked about them during your talk. The only thing I can just provide now, for the sake of those people who did not join us from the beginning, Onos was able to take us through, at least from the background of his work. He tried to go through the source rocks, which we classify, we have immature, organic poor, and gas prone. Then he looked at the flues, and from commingled wells, we're trying to classify into shallow reservoirs and deep reservoir. Actually, he told us that he didn't know which one to classify. He didn't have any evidence of the shallow one and the rest, but yet he still managed to classify shallow reservoir and deep reservoir. Then he took some of the oil samples and tried to look at the N-alkane traces. You look at the gasoline range, the diamonds, the naphthalene and the phenylanes, the aromatic sterols and the biomarkers. So he tried as much as possible to look at the source plus maturity of the N-alkanes and isoprenols and try to find out that most of our oils, they are aloe oil, even to peak. He also confirmed using the gasoline range and the aromatic range, as well as the biomarkers, which also suggested that the planktonic bacteria and land materials also suggest aloe and topic oil. So he also tried to look at additional evidences of hydrocarbon mixing. Then he tried to present the overall outcome from source to maturity data. So try to look at the early window and all these things to confirm them. So he already told us that diamondoid, which is an ubiquitous index minerals, it occurs in all oil. So, and as a result, it's very good for us to look at the ultra deep in the Niger Delta. He also made some comparison between the Niger Delta and other African ultra deep water. And we'll be able to look at what he has done and he has presented today. So it's now question and answer period. So, and I know a lot of people during the chat are trying to put up questions. Should I ask this thing, the questions, they are here. I need to try to, some of the questions have been answered to by some people, which is very good. I will just pick few, about 4 of that questions, and we look at it. Well, somebody was trying to, and that is the person of our Professor Akonde, who is also NAPE. He's trying to greet everyone. I would like the presenter to comment on the possibility of both the marine type 2 and terrigenous type 3 kerogen being contributed within the variable marine through terrigenous machines. So, including the cold machines. So, I believe that you can hear the questions. Where then there's a pathway for migration of this deeply sourced oil from the Cretaceous. That is a Professor Akonde's question for you.
Okay, so if I get the question right, about type 3.
No, type 2.
Type 2 marine and type 3 heterogeneous contributing to the oil.
Yeah.
And then pathway for migration.
Yes.
Yeah, so the base of the Agbada, which we know that most of the shales in the Agbada formation are mainly type 3, with possibly some mixed type 2, type 3. We know that that must have contributed a percentage. The top of the Akata, again, which is type 2 marine, must have contributed. But do we actually have type 2 marine in Niger Delta, which is classical type 2? I believe we should. It will really depend on where you are sitting as the basin develops. So we know the basin was developing over time and sedimentation takes place along the delta from north to southward. So it really depends on where you are sitting on the basin at a particular time, where you will have the classical types. But the diamondoid itself shows that our samples are actually mainly marine type 2, and they must have been sourced from a deep source rock, being in early gas window when they were generated. And also, the question about migration is a bit difficult, but more recently, which I've seen seismic section with regional pathway through the Akata formation. So more recent seismic section that focuses on the deep sediments pathway will see regional faulting structures through the Akata formation. And that's part of why this studies was encouraged, because once we saw that, yes, there is a possibility of pathway through our very under-compacted and over-pressured formation, the Akata formation, then if there is anything down there, it must have been contributing to the oil which we see reservoired in the Agbada.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I think Professor Akonde's question was asking that he believed that some of these things must have been sourced from the Cretaceous, because we are talking about anostic event. Don't forget, we have phenomenal Turonian anostic event, and some of them giving rise to the oil shale and the rest. And I think Professor Akonde and co have worked, and they've traced this one even to the western part of the Dahomey Basin. So what he is trying to say now is that though we cannot get to, when you drill through Niger Delta, you won't get to Akata, maybe because of overpressure and the rest. But he was thinking that maybe from the available data from the Cretaceous source rocks, at least some of these things may, with your Diamondoid, may be able to link them up together. But that is for you. I think Professor Akonde, that answers your question, sir. So the second question, because of our time, I know some people have already answered the question. The phenomenal Turonian interval is our best bet because of oceanic anostic events too, which I agree with the person. Although somebody also asked question, it has been answered. What do you mean by IOGP? And somebody tried to this drilling project. So a lot of them commented that you have a nice presentation and an excellent presentation. Then there is one from Alex Oshode. He said the data is continually progressing since the tertiary. So he was now trying to say that the control of source rock evolution are not limited to the oceanic anostic event. You can have localized anoxia at the shelf edge and also in the upwelling areas. The shale you sample in the well, which has a phytoclast, could be completely marine in other parts of the basin. Really appreciate your explanation with the oil, contributing to the oil and gas we have in the Niger Delta. This is a good contribution. So
yes, I will just comment briefly on that here. Alex, thank you very much. So if you look at a basin regionally, definitely you can have localized anoxia. I agree with you, but in the grand scheme of things, looking at a basin as wide as Niger Delta, if you have some pockets of localized anoxia, it will be very difficult to generate the kind of quantity of oil and gas which we are talking about for Niger Delta. Niger Delta is a world-class basin, and we've been producing for over 50, 60 years. We'll still continue to produce for a long time. So if you look at that critically, localized anoxia cannot be, it can be part of what we've been producing, but is not the main part. And partly why I put the phytoclast picture, my colleague in Wales, I've looked at 876 source rock samples from Niger Delta. So one of our very big companies sends a whole lot of samples to him, and all what it does is to isolate kerogen and look at the organic matter. I tell you, close to 1,000 sample. That is a work that has kept him busy for a long time. Almost everything, more than 99%, are just phytoclast. They just keep sending, they keep keeping him busy, and they keep giving them the result. Phytoclast everywhere. So phytoclast is not like a restricted part of the basin. It's actually, if you see amorphous organic matter, that will be a deviation from the norm for Niger Delta at the depth which they are drilling to and which they are giving them samples, I suppose. Yeah. Thank you very much. A very good question.
Thank you, Onos. I see what to let you understand that some people are also saying that if you say they are it's a mixed oil, does that mean that is, mixed within the Agbada Akata or with the Cretaceous? That's
Yes.
the whole question. Somebody was now telling us that because of the overpressure of the Akata now, so if you are trying to drill, penetrate through so what is going to form the migration pathway? How will you, well, this is also a good question because you are dealing with two different depositional cycles. We are talking about the tertiary, you are talking about the Cretaceous now.
So like I said, more recently, there has been seismic sections that are imaging very deep formations, and they've been able to see regional faults through those sections in Akata. So based on that was why this project started anyway. If we can establish that, yes, Akata is faulted, then we should know that if there's anything from the Cretaceous, it must have a migration route through the Akata.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I think a lot of people have commented on your presentation, very, very good one. The one I will just ask is that, because I like the way you have done your work, but you see, some people want to see, okay, this well you are having, do they have well log, even the seismic you are talking, how then can you populate this, your data? For example, you classify them, oh, this one is within this range. If you are given some of these marker horizons. So, but it's good to integrate geochemistry with other parameters like the geophysics, so that everybody can be on the same page. Because for them to understand you properly, they must be able to tie your findings with what they also can relate to on the geophysics. So by and large, this is a good presentation. And I will just want us to know that we've learned a lot today from these new techniques. And a lot of students have been working on these Diamondoid, even here in the University of Ibadan. We have produced, at least we have 2 PhD already graduated, but they don't have the kind of volume of data you have. And then, like I told you, we have different depot centers. So we want to see the map that we have generated, how this one is showing. For instance, some oil companies are trying to go deeper and see whether they can get more oil. And some of them, in fact, they are seeing oil in a deeper horizon, even at a 28.8. There are some findings, recent finding now. Although it was not allowed to be published, but there's some area, especially in the western part of the Niger Delta, they can drill further to get oil. So we're using this your method and then incorporating with the basic modeling, I think we have a good result. So I want to thank the coordinator of this session. And I think because of our time, I will hand over to the coordinator who will help us to talk to the other people and tell us what to expect next. So thank you very much. Honors.
Thanks a lot, Prof. Thank you very much, sir.
So over to you, Abimbola Drobiton.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Yes, to speak over here.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Professor Eniola. He was my lecturer also when I did my undergrad. So I think there's that also link apart from Dr. Honorede. Yeah. So thank you all. I want to also recognize Professor Samuel Akonde, fellow NAPE, the NAPE president, who is also here, and also recognize the Vice President of NAPE, Mr. John Bosco Uche. I think we sent him from the UK chapter to be the Vice President. We also have other executives, other NAPE coordinators. We have the coordinator of, I think, Abuja and also Wari here. We also have other executives. So we have Dr. Juliet, also is the lecturer, treasurer of NAPE. And also we have Mrs. Tubosun Afolanya, who is also my boss, the publicity secretary of NAPE Lagos. So with that said, we'll quickly go to the announcement that we have. And after that, I would invite the current president of NAPE to give us a short speech. And after this short speech from her, we'll have the vote of thanks. And yeah, we would have the opportunity to network. So for our announcement, it's our usual. I know a lot of us, we know NAPE, but there might be some people who are here who have not heard of NAPE before. So NAPE, the full meaning is the Nigerian Association of Petroleum Explorationists. So it's a society of geologists, geophysicists, of course, and most people, like here, people that work in the oil and gas industry. At the moment, we are over 10,000 strong members, individual members, and close to 200 corporate members. Yeah, it was established in 1975. So if you're interested, we have our various membership, like I mentioned, individual and also corporate. For individual, it costs 15 to 20 pounds for you to be a member, for you to register. And if you want to register your company, if your company is looking at sponsoring or even maybe presenting a paper or two in one of our events, that's something you can do. For you to become a member, it costs 75 to 80 pounds for you to register, and you pay that every year. If you want to register, you can speak to me. You can also speak with the chapter coordinator, Dr. Abimbola Drobito, and Mr. Gideon Giwa. I think in the email, if you've registered, the email that you've received, that's my email address. So you can always contact me through that medium, and would be able to assist. So as you've enjoyed today's presentation, I'm sure it has been, you've learned a lot from this. We have events coming up this month. So at the moment, yeah, for tomorrow, we have the NAPE NMGS Night of Tributes, hosted in the honor of Professor S.W. Peters. Then on Saturday, the 14th of August, we have the NAPE Extraordinary General Meeting. And then on Sunday, the 15th of August, I think, yeah, for abstract for the NAPE Annual International Conference, I think people who have submitted the abstract earlier, they will, I think, yeah, possible, like, yeah, there will be notification of acceptance of abstract. I think there might be extension, but that is something I could confirm if you're interested in submitting a paper to present at the international conference. Then we have the NAPE Summer School course, Summer School. The course is on resource economics. So if you're interested in the NAPE Summer School, let us know. And then, yeah, would send it to the right source at NAPE Lagos, and they would register you. For NAPE UK, we have our next technical meeting on the 25th of August. Details, I'll provide more details on that. And I think, yeah, there's also technical meeting organized by the young professionals and also for the Port Harcourt chapter too. So these details will be shared, and also in the course of this announcement, I will speak on them. So the Night of Tribute, like I mentioned, this is the Zoom link. If you're interested in attending, please, you could either screen grab, or you could just quickly copy that so that you can have the link for you to join. You can also find the link on the website too, on NAPE website at www.nape.org.ng. For for the UK Europe chapters technical meeting, the next meeting, the presentation is on physics-based deep machine learning for more geologically meaningful reservoir property prediction. So this is sponsored by CGG and also Avex Geosolution. So yeah, just like you've enjoyed today's talk, is also going to be, this is also something new. Machine learning. So yeah, it will be good for you to also register. It will be going out, we'll be sending this out, and yeah, you from today, so you'll be able to register from today. For other meetings, like I've mentioned, and just quick one in terms of benefits for NAPE members who are members, apart from the technical meeting, there are other benefits, benefits that you can gain. So one of them is the Health Maintenance Organization Scheme. So it would be nice for you to speak with either Mr. Tunde or Mr. Lazarus Swago to contact them about this, so that you can make use of this. For international conference, that's going to take place on the 14th to 18th of November. Registration is ongoing. So you could, like I mentioned that, the abstract, that was extended. So you can still, I think there's possibility that you might still be able to submit. But if you're looking at registration is ongoing. And also for companies that are looking to exhibit, you could also speak with us. There's room for sponsorship and exhibition. So with that, we come to the end of our announcement. So for other meetings or other, if there are any other announcements, this will be communicated to you via email or WhatsApp. Thank you so much for attending. You can follow us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Instagram. With this said, I will hand us over to the NAPE president to give us a short speech. Thank you so much. Hello, ma. Okay.
President is not on the list right now.
Yeah, she's not. Yeah. Maybe the vice president, is the vice president around?
Yeah, the vice president can take the position.
So Over to you, Mr. John Bosco. Okay, I think he's not around. I think he's left.
He's not around too.
Okay.
He was there initially, but he has left right now.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you very much. I think maybe we'll just move to the vote of thanks.
Let's move to the vote of thanks by Gideon. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Kwayemi, and thanks to the our speaker, Dr. Sugbe, for answering our call. We really appreciated the effort that has gone into the presentation and the time and effort that he has put into preparing and delivering the presentation. And we want to thank our chairman, Professor Eniola, for moderating, taking the question and sharing with us as well his vast experience in this space. We also want to express our gratitude to Professor Akonde, our professor, our daddy, for gracing us this afternoon. The NAPE UK chapter remain very grateful, sir, for your presence. I want to thank all the officials who have all joined us from the executive, from the president to the vice president, the publicity secretary, and others as well. So lastly, in order to bring it to a close, we want to express our gratitude to our members and everyone who has joined the meeting today. Thank you very much. And as the policy secretary, Okoyemi mentioned, we keep you updated on the rest of our plans for the year. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day ahead. Bye.
Thank you so much. That's the end of our technical session. So yeah, this is the networking session. So you could meet and greet, and if you want to also still ask questions directly to the speaker, that's fine. If he's still around and he wants to do that too. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Honorade.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Honorade. And thank you, Professor Eniola. Thank you, sir.
Prof, our chairman, thank you very much for.
Thank you, sir.
You are all welcome.
Sir.
Please, you do have my emails.
Yes, sir, I still have your email. I have your number too, sir. I'll call you and yes, we'll discuss.
Yeah.
I promise. Well done, sir.
Okay, Gideon.
Hello, Mr. Ibukun.
I'm getting okay, Gideon.
Hello, Mr. Ibukun.
I think
Gideon has left.
I think Gideon has left.
Okay.
This is Sunday representing him here.
Okay.
Oh yes, it will be sent, sir.
Okay, how are you, Ibukun? Long time, Ibukun. Okay.
Sir. Long time. Good afternoon, sir.
No problem. I hope you have not abandoned us for you are here. Everybody should stay safe.
Oh yes, we are trying.
Yeah.
We are trying, sir.
Abandon you.
At
Goda, how are you, Goda? Obi. Okay.
I think Dr. Iwobi.
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you, sir. Good
Long
afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Professor Eniola.
Oh, and Dr. Onos, thank you so much for the presentation.
Yeah, thanks for attending.
Yeah.
Go there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Kolawole, thank you.
Yeah, we do respect Dr. Drobita. Professor Eniola, good afternoon, sir. It's been a while. I'm really glad to hear your voice. We do respect. Good afternoon, sir.
I'm not seeing a lot of people today. I thought that you are in US. I didn't know it's UK.
Yeah, I'm actually in the UK, yes.
Okay. So
well done, sir. Thank you for the contributions as well. Dr. Onos, that was really, really excellent. Well done.
Yeah.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah, Shegun, thank you very much. Thanks for attending. Yeah.
Well done.
Hey.